Hey guys, welcome back to Donnyboy73, the Small Engine Doctor, and welcome back to another episode of Small Engines Questions and Answers for Friday, September 16th, 2011. I also want to welcome all the new subscribers today, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It's always free, and I'm always posting new videos online on this channel. In my first question today, YouTuber is asking me, what causes an engine to have too much compression or a lot of compression? Well, what usually causes that is that your engine is in really good condition. For your engine to have a lot of compression like that, it's going to have a good cylinder and a good piston and rings. And if it's a 4-stroke, your valves are going to be in excellent condition. And when I'm talking about a good cylinder and good piston and rings, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is a new aftermarket cylinder kit for a Stihl chainsaw. So if these are in good condition, you're going to have a lot of compression, which is good. I would never say that an engine has too much compression, because the more compression you have, the more power you're going to get out of your engine. It's when you don't have enough compression that becomes a problem. Here's a Stihl MS250, and for a small chainsaw, it sure has a lot of compression. Sometimes when people go to start these chainsaws, they think there's something wrong with them because they're hard to pull over. Well, they're hard to pull over because they have a lot of compression. And as I mentioned, that's what you want. You want the most compression you can get out of an engine. If you're going to buy a new chainsaw and you're concerned about being able to start it, make sure it has a decompression valve on the side of the cylinder or on the top. Ask your dealer when you buy the chainsaw, and they'll make sure you get one with a decompression valve. My next question today is regarding older Stihl chainsaws, and the question I get sometimes is, my recoil's working good and all the parts inside over here, but the engine still won't turn over when I pull the cord. Now on these chainsaws, there's a plastic ring over here and it wears out over time, and the symptoms of that are going to be that when you go to start the chainsaw, sometimes it's going to slip or it's not going to catch, and eventually it's just not going to do anything. So what you do is replace the plastic part. You can get an OEM part or an aftermarket part fairly cheap. Just pop this one out and install the new one, and your recoil is going to work as good as new again. And you want to make sure that the parts open up like this inside the recoil. And if that's okay and you put a new ring, it's going to work. Sometimes people ask me, can you still get parts for these older chainsaws? Like for example, this is an old Stihl 070. You can get some OEM parts from Stihl, but certain parts you cannot. Now the fortunate thing is you can get aftermarket parts on eBay that will fit these chainsaws. They're not made by Stihl, but they do fit, and you can restore your chainsaw. The only thing is it's not going to be original parts, but it's still going to look good. Some people like to restore these with all OEM parts. If that's the case, then you can look on eBay or other chainsaw websites to try to locate used parts. For example, the owner of this chainsaw bought an aftermarket Chinese carburetor that fit this saw, and it works good with it. He couldn't find parts for his OEM Stihl carburetor, but he stumbled upon some aftermarket carburetors on eBay, bought it, put it on, and it's good. Another question I got from a YouTuber is, what does the impulse line do on my chainsaw? Well, first of all, the impulse line is just a little hose like this. It's fitted with a grommet. That's so that it fits perfectly into the plastic casings on the chainsaw. Now what this line does is it brings impulses of air from the crankcase of a chainsaw to the carburetor. The impulse line that I have in my hand is for a Stihl 026, and this is where it comes out here in the plastic casing near the carburetor. It actually connects on the crankcase of the chainsaw down inside. So when I reinstall the carburetor, this part of the carburetor here is going to go inside the impulse line over here. It's going to send a steady stream of air or impulses to the carburetor, and it's going to make the diaphragm pump here operate and pump the fuel up to the carburetor and send it to the engine. So that's what an impulse line is for. Now you can stretch your impulse line to see if there's any cracks. Even if it's a hairline crack, you should replace the line. Now if you've had your chainsaw for at least over 10 years and you've never replaced it, and you're having problems with the chainsaw even after rebuilding the carburetor, then do replace the impulse line. If the line is losing air, your chainsaw will not function properly. You're always going to have to adjust the carburetor if you're losing air through this hose, and at some point it's not even going to work. And for what they cost, under 10 bucks usually, it's well worth replacing it when you do a carburetor rebuild on your chainsaw. My last tip for today, often people ask me, how do you put away your grass trimmers for the winter? Well, all I do is I drain the fuel tank, then I start up the machine with a choke and run it until it dies. That way all the fuel that's in the carburetor is burnt up and there's nothing left in there to go bad. The other option you have is to use fuel stabilizer, put it in the fuel tank, run your machine for a few minutes so the fuel goes up to the carburetor, and then put it away. So that's about all the time I have for today. Thanks for watching, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.